Yeah.
Become your own boss.
All right, well, why don't we just get started? We'll just shift here since we don't have all of our panelists. I'm gonna kind of introduce what's happening here, Kent, and then I'm gonna actually let Bruno run the questions. He's gonna ask you questions. And so we're recording this so that we can post it to the Career Services website and anybody can watch it later on. Full disclosure to y'all, Kent's my brother-in-law, so I can be meaner to him than normal people. No. So what we're really wanting to do is help students understand that a lot of times career pathways aren't linear. You don't usually say like, I want to, own 10 businesses and you graduate and you do that. It's a pathway that you take to get there. So Bruno's going to ask you some questions that helps you kind of, share your pathway. And then at the end, if there's any time, maybe they can ask you some questions.
Okay, great.
Sound good?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to give it over to Bruno then.
All right. Now, how are you doing today?
Hey, Bruno, I'm doing well. Thank you. I have the day off, so I'm glad to spend some time with you guys. And I am sure I'm going to learn from you as much as you're going to learn from me. So let's see where this conversation goes.
All right. Well, I guess I'll get right into the questions then. So what was your education and career path like, and what jobs have you had in the past? And how did you get to where you were or where you're at now?
Okay, very good. I also wanted to welcome Justin, who looks like he just joined us.
Hi.
Welcome, Justin.
Sorry I'm late.
Hey, I'll pop in. Hi, I'm Nicole. It's okay. Thanks for joining us. I was just telling Kent that we are recording this so that other students can see your pathway. I have two future business leaders of Tahoe members here. And so Bruno is going to be asking you some questions about your career pathway, just to let students kind of understand how you got to where you are. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
And just to introduce you, I'm Bruno Macias. I'm the president of the Future Business Leaders of Tahoe, and Tassel here is the vice president of the club.
Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you, sir. So I'm gonna if it's all right, I'm gonna reiterate the question for Justin as well too, so that way we could hear both of your answers. But so my question is, what was your education and career path like, and what jobs have you had in the past, as well as how did you get to where you are at now?
Is this for me or Kent? Are you doing this?
Or both of you guys. So whoever wants to jump first,
I'll jump in first, just since I've been on the call a little bit longer. Well, yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Kent Baer. I'm a full-time, long-time Lake Tahoe resident, and I'm the co-owner of Ernie's Coffee Shop. It's an American style diner. We do breakfast and lunch there. And then to get to your question about my education and career path, I'm probably a good candidate for this career panel since you were interested in like nonlinear paths to finding your line of work. And I would definitely categorize myself as a jack of all trades. No mastery of any yet, so we'll work on that over time. I'm a South Tahoe High graduate. I'm also an LTCC graduate. So I have an AA from LTCC. I also have a BA from Seattle Pacific University, where I studied sociology and art. And I guess my career path has been mostly customer service and retail related, specifically through school. After school, I tried to explore my interest in sociology by working as a counselor, both in like the high school summer camp setting and a teenage lockdown facility, kind of like a juvenile hall in the Bay Area. So I did counseling work there. Found myself to be directed towards wanting to be like personally creative in my career path. So I ended up falling back on my art interests and having a studio art practice where I was primarily painting and attempting to sell my artworks to the public. That led me into wanting to work for a contemporary art gallery. So I landed a job with a gallery in Seattle in the early 2000s and quickly stopped painting. I realized maybe I'm not that talented with my creating artwork, but I really love supporting artists and having my hand in various art shows and supporting the artists as they brought their studio practice to the public. So I stayed in that field, the contemporary art world, for a number of years, early 2000s until about 2014. And started becoming interested in owning my own business by working for another art dealer. I opened a gallery in San Francisco in 2008 and was the owner and director of that gallery. And I really enjoyed my work in that field. It was fascinating. It was super rewarding. It allowed me the opportunity to travel, to support a small group of artists, share their work with the world. And my goal is primarily to place artworks in public collections. And I worked with a relatively small group of collectors. So it was a pretty intimate relationship with artists and art collectors. In 2013, 14, I really started feeling my heartstrings being pulled back to the mountains, wanting to have my family spend more time in the mountains. My wife's from South Lake Tahoe as well. And so we decided to move back to Lake Tahoe, at which time I realized the contemporary art world I was participating in didn't necessarily exist. Or I didn't know how to interact with it, at least in South Lake Tahoe. And upon my arrival, a family friend approached me and my brother-in-law and business partner about purchasing the restaurant. So we jumped in with both feet in order to take on that business. So that's a little bit about my education, my career path. I've kind of jumped around a little bit, and I hope to continue to jump around. I really love my work now, but I'd be happy to try some new lines of work in my later years. So thanks.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, well, as Ken said, this industry definitely forces you to jump around. You got to bob and weave to keep up with all the trends. So cool story. I'm glad I learned the history of you.
Well, would it be all right if we could hear the history of you, Justin?
Yeah, sure. So my career or my education path, I went to business school with a focus in hospitality. By the time I was in college, I was already cooking a little dive bar and grill just to get through. I had questionable dreams of becoming a chef, but I just climbed the ladder, finished school. I was fortunate enough to work for some really good chefs in New Jersey, New York, and Philadelphia. And as any young chef does, you kind of bounce around, growing in different kitchens. And I was fortunate enough to do that. Then I landed my first restaurant that I opened when I was 26 in Philadelphia. I owned that for a few years and was kind of burning out. I didn't really do a lot of the traveling you do as an impulsive 20-something-year-old. And so as I was approaching 29, I decided I'm going to move to Lake Tahoe. And I sold my restaurant and moved here. I took a chef gig in North Lake and did that for a few years. That led me to South Lake, where I was the opening chef at Coldwater Brewery. I was there for a few years. From there, I went back to New York and for a contract. I did that for a little while, 1 year or 15 months. I came back to Tahoe because I missed it, and it's like a gravity here. And at which point I became the head chef of Riva Grill. And then working there, I just kind of wanted to get out of being an executive chef and do something more for the community. And that's when the idea of a bagel store popped in because we didn't have one. So I started making bagels and they turned out to be pretty good. And we just kind of ran with it. And that was 1.5 years ago. Since then, we've opened our second store with a few more on the way.
Well,
That's it.
thank you for sharing.
Justin, you do a
guys-
great job too. By the way, I love your product.
Thanks.
Happy to have a good bagel shop back in Tahoe, and congratulations on expanding and taking, working from the ground up and figuring it out and being successful. That's really awesome.
Yeah, us both. It's definitely a challenge, and COVID really made you. We had to kind of deconstruct our business model and rebuild it with these new restrictions. And actually, I mean, it worked out best because we're quick service for the most part anyway. I think that's a really huge component of being a business owner is being adaptable.
I like that.
You can plan all you want and have systems in place, but then the world's going to throw something at you and those systems might not apply. So you have to learn to be adaptable, think on your feet quickly, respond quickly, and having a good staff and a good crew, but getting them on board to your vision is also hugely integral.
Sure. Yeah, the question number 2 here was asking us about like what qualities kind of help you get by in business and what skills are important. And I think the point you just brought up about like being a good leader to your staff is super important. Being able to perform the same jobs and tasks that you ask them to do is.
I'm in my apron. I'm taking a break from cooking. Yeah.
Right. I mean, later on, if we talk about our day-to-day, I would share that I do the same thing. So I think for me, like my counseling experience was certainly helpful in terms of being able to meet not only my customers, but my staff where they are, figuring out what their needs are in that moment, and then finding solutions for them. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I was fortunate when I started this cooking, I was in college for something else initially. And I was fortunate enough to have a really good mentor. So when I was introduced into the restaurant world and the behaviors and the vernacular of restaurants, he set me with this precedence that he kind of introduced this world that I didn't know existed, and set me on a path of good habits with cleanliness and respecting your coworkers and your boss and your customers. I think that is, I don't know if that's a personal quality, but it's something that definitely stuck to me, was having a good leadership and having a mentor. And so I've tried to emulate that I've probably employed 200 people in my career. I've been a chef for 20 years now, and Tahoe Bagel is the 12th restaurant that I've opened. So having, your staff look at you as a leader versus a manager, that's the old philosophy, leader versus manager kind of thing. One more of this autocratic dictator versus someone you want to work for and you want to be around and you want to work hard for, and with. I mean, my staff works with me. They don't necessarily work for me.
Yeah, my staff tends to train me.
That's good. You're lucky.
Yeah.
At my first store, they definitely are like, all right, we got this. Can you just get out of our way, please?
Right.
You're slowing us down.
All right, so tell us about like your job. What is it like as a chef or as a business owner? What was it like when you were opening your restaurants, Justin, and like, that kind of process? And for kind of the same question, like what was like your day like, even if before you got to this job?
Sure. I'd say the line of work as being a chef, the success of it comes in the preparation. You want to think through every scenario. I tell young cooks, think finish before you start. So if I give them a recipe card, before he even begins to go get the first piece of celery, he or she reads the recipe a few times, goes through the processes in their head, what kind of cutting board will I need? What kind of knives or equipment, utensils? What am I going to store it in? Do I have a marker to label it? You have to be prepared. Think finish before you start. I think that's a big piece of the success about anything, just an individual recipe, or as far as building a whole store like this. I did a ton of market research before we opened our first bagel store. I sat in that parking lot and I counted the number of cars that drove through the day. I researched bagel stores within 50 miles and what kind of market trends they have. We wrote a 27-page business plan with 3 sets of financial pro formas. So there's a lot that goes into walking into Kent's store or my store, just things that get overlooked, why chairs are placed the way they are, why the kitchen's designed the way it is. There's so much pre-thought that goes into it so that the operation is smooth and seamless and is successful. The fact that the door is the farthest point from my register, it's so that I can get the maximum people in line waiting inside versus outside for comfort. But that's just to create the place. From there, each day is different. It depends on which store has certain staff. I'll pop over to one store versus the other. There's always a problem, especially with a new business. I mean, we're 3 weeks into our Kingsbury location, and the past 2 days, my oven has been just kind of dying out on us. So I've had to have a tech in here and working with him. Our espresso machine is blowing circuits, so we're ordering new pieces for that. There's always something going on. And it goes back to the adaptability. And I'm not an electrician, I'm not a tech guy with the oven, but I know how to read a manual. I can work with him.
You are now.
Her. An accountant, nurse, therapist, all of it. Doctor, but you just have to trust yourself and trust your experience and the people around you. Like Ken said, his staff tells him what to do sometimes, or trains him sometimes. We're fortunate enough at our first store that I have a crew that's been with us since we opened. They know the place inside and out. They have their finger on the pulse, and it kind of allows me to take a step back and oversee larger things with the community. That's part of being, I think, a successful restaurant here in this town like this. There's the tourist restaurants, but then there's the community restaurants too. And we're trying to really be that by giving back to the community through different sponsorships or programs like this, being on the restaurant association. So I get to take a step back and sit in on meetings like this and try and do stuff like that. What else? I mean, fortunately, since we both kind of have breakfast spots, my day is done roughly by 2:30, barring any other major problems at the store. So I am able to, have a life again, which is good. But recently it's allowing us to look for location number 3 and 4 and 5. So that's day in life. It's a lot of work. But I hate to use the word passion. It's a love. It's something I enjoy. I'm good at.
Yeah. Well, one point you hit on there, which is part of the business process that I really have enjoyed, is like those early stages of business planning, the conceptual side where you're trying to figure out, your first logo or the company name and all those little details that seem so important, and they are. But once you kind of open those doors, hit the ground running, a lot of that's, to the wayside. Yeah, you have the sign up front, but what you're doing inside is what matters. And my day-to-day sounds a lot like yours, Justin, where it's expect the unexpected. When I wake up, I kind of wait for my first text to come in, which is usually an employee saying that they have some sort of, emergency with their cat or something and they can't show up. And then I have time to see how fast I can get to the restaurant to cover. And then from there, it's, yesterday I had an electrical problem and something didn't show up on an order, and finding solutions for those issues. And while I have a great staff, sometimes I'm surprised that I hope they're not listening, but I can't believe that they can't figure it out sometimes. But it does take that point person, take a leadership role and say, all right, there is a problem. Let's find the breaker that is related to it. Let's cover this person because they can't be in today. Let's work as a team. And so my day starts early in the morning as well, but I do like the fact that running a breakfast restaurant leaves my afternoons free to enjoy Lake Tahoe, because I live in Lake Tahoe not to become rich. I live in Lake Tahoe to enjoy the community here and to enjoy the surroundings and be active, and not a slave to business, not a slave to the rat race out there. So it comes with compromise. Like I'll I will never drive the fancy car to my place of business, but that's the lifestyle I'm choosing. And
It's finding that balance. Yeah. I didn't,
Yeah.
when I was a chef and active chef, not this, I was, a slow week would be 55, 60 hours at different restaurants. And it's tough here in this tourist town. It's, this is probably one of the better qualities of life that I've discovered in my 20 years of this career. And I mean, I'm a glutton for punishment, so I'm sure one day, once these stores are fully autonomous, or at least as autonomous as they can be, there are other full service dining concepts that I'd like to do in this town that I think are missing. But we'll see if I'm sane enough to do that.
Right, you're hitting on some points of operating a business in South Lake Tahoe, and we're a resort community. We're a community that relies on tourism and seasonal change, and that presents its own set of problems day to day. Where
that should be a class at LTCC.
Yeah, that there's a tidal wave of people coming to Tahoe this summer. You can see it on the horizon, and you're trying to staff up. You're trying to hire for the summer. And that means you have to run a high payroll for, let's say, 2 months leading into summer when you're not that busy. It's an expense that you're going to have to invest in order to do well during your business time, when you're busy time and you're not leaving money on the table, so to speak. So you're right. The kind of planning ahead as much as possible is also very important.
I think a focus with us was trying to create that community place. I mean, yes, the tourism and the tourists are a huge revenue generator for all of us in almost every industry here. But we wanted something that was going to be stable year round. Like when I was at Riva Grill, we would do nights where we'd maybe have 5 tables. Then in the summer, we have nights where we do 1,800 covers. And it's these insane swings. It's so hard to staff. I mean, you can speak to it 100%. Staffing for that, purchasing for that, budgeting for that, it's very, very difficult. So I mean, I can look at our numbers from last year. They have 1 year of numbers, or week over week, I can kind of dictate what our numbers will be, and they're pretty consistent. The weekends are higher, but that's just the industry. So we wanted to focus on something that would be pretty consistent. I mean, we had a slower shoulder season, which was nice. Everyone took their vacations and deep cleaning and project fixing, and now it's get after it time.
Bruno or Tassel or anyone else in that room that we're looking at, did you have any questions about our answers or like us to elaborate?
There actually is a question.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, my name is Nan. I'm not into business, but in listening to both of you, it would seem that, you don't mind taking risks and you're passionate about trying things. But, and you say, so I opened here and I opened this and I opened that. And well, maybe now you have the money, but where did you get your seed money from when you were just crazy to open your first business? But you knew you had to be able to back a payroll. You had to pay overhead for a location. You had to gather the materials, especially in your profession with the cooking. The question just looms big on me. You're talking about opening things and it sounds easy, but where do you get the money?
So there's a lot of ways to source funding for a business. I mean, you can go traditional routes, SBA loans, things like that. They're gonna want answers that you don't have information for yet. Especially if you're a brand new concept, you don't know what your revenue is going to be like, and they're gonna want exact numbers and stuff like that. 1 second, sorry. I was fortunate enough that by the time I opened my restaurant, I had some savings aside. I was able to pull some money from some friends and some family, just enough. I mean, I opened my first restaurant very meager. It was very kind of sterile, and then we built it over time. As the revenue was generating, we built the restaurant over time. And it kind of, I didn't like to design a restaurant that was complete. Because let's say you put it in an area and it's useless, or you're not going to use it, you're not utilizing it. I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. It's better, at least for me, it's my experience. It's better to see what your needs are. And I mean, from even the bagel stores, we had to take it's called an angel investor. It's someone who believes in your concept. It's a private money. And the relationship there can be kind of what you create with it. An angel investor sometimes wants to stay with the concept, so they'll give you X amount upfront, stay with the business in hopes for return of money in the future, taking either a dividend or a financial portion of it. We were fortunate enough that we bought out our angel investor in a few months, and we're debt free. Our first store is debt free. We used rolling profits of that store, put it aside for a year to pay for this one. And this store, if my numbers are right, this store should be paid off by the end of the summer. So it's just,
Wow.
Getting the initial funding is tough. There's a lot of ways. If your guys are looking to do it, it's the research up front. It's writing multiple forms of pro formas, financial reports, what you think you're going to do based on market research, pilot it or test it. You do like pop-ups of a concept to see the traction, to gain interest in it. Things like that. And there's people that want to invest. I mean, aside from my business, I have personal investments in other businesses that are not food related, because that would be competition. But if it's a sound concept that has a good ROI, people want to invest in that. People want to be a part of that. It's exciting.
Justin, you're so much smarter than me, specifically in business. Yeah, I don't have a business education, and I think that's something that would benefit me. However, I think I love the question, first of all, because I often have a similar questions about other businesses. When I opened my first business, the goal was that I wanted to be my own art dealer. I wanted to have my brick and mortar art gallery and represent a small group of artists and have shows with them and figure it out. However, I recognize that did require a lot of money. So the first thing I did was, in order to grow organically, is I started a limited edition fine art publication company. So basically I took $2,000 I had in savings and bought a little etching press and put that in the basement of my house I was living in, and started inviting artists over to spend time with me and creating multiples. And then I'd take those to the same art collectors I was working through at the gallery I was employed under, and selling them. And that kind of gave me some seed money, not a lot, but at least it built some confidence, if not a lot of money. And then how did I open my first gallery? I honestly shake my head sometimes and think, what were you thinking? You didn't have enough money, took on way too much rent in downtown San Francisco. You thought you had relationships that weren't that solid. And then, of course, in 2008, we had a huge downturn in the economy. So all my collectors look like ghost face and were looking at me like, I'm not just spending my discretionary income with you right now, And so that was a great learning curve for me as I started my own business, in terms of just being scrappy, slowing down my goals and trying to grow organically without taking on too much debt. Now, I think debt's going to be a part of your business game. Now, Justin, I'm super impressed you've been able to take on and pay off debt. My business is, maybe it's a little bit different, but I would say I still hold debt. And I think people are often opposed to building credit on debt, but it's such an important part of being able to do business, to be able to have resources that will lend to you. And sure, that comes at a cost, but you have to pay to play. And that's part of it. So I'm not sure I'd fully answered your question. I would advise, since I don't have the wherewithal to create very formal reports or do proper market research, let's say, whatever your passion or goal is, to really start small, bite off a piece that you can chew, and be willing to grow organically, even if that's growing more slowly over time.
And to add on to Kent's thing, his art or his background's art. He's an idea man, and let's say not a lot of numbers people or market research people are idea, think tank style people. So you could take an idea, let's say it was a new restaurant concept he has this vision in his head, but he wants the market research and he wants the analytics and he wants all the data. That's what people are for. Other people, other companies like that, third-party companies. So as long as those people are accessible, you can always utilize third-party market research firms, and you pay them over time. It's not always upfront, things like that. And you use your resources. I use our general contractor who's built both of our stores. He's built a ton of other restaurants in town, and he was a huge resource in certain design things that I had in my head about flow of the store. He said, let's try this, or my experience this. So it's using your resources around you. You're not building this army and this idea by yourself. It's a group of people. It's with you, below you.
Thank you. In particular, it comes to my mind, I wanted to know how flexible were the Small Business Association and any banks that you may have spoken to in order to get yourself started money-wise?
I personally didn't go through any banks. I have credit, but we have a business credit card. Just for the points and the miles and such. But from what I learned in school, going the bank route was very difficult. I opened my first one in 2008, like he said, in the recession. So no banks would even consider that. That's why I opened on Meager. But I opened it. It was an opportunistic time, if you think about it. People weren't buying houses or boats or going on extravagant vacations, but they were still going out to dinner. Everyone's got to eat. And whatever disposable income they were using for semi-fine dining or more progressive city food on the East Coast. And that was my background. It was more of the like stuff you see on Top Chef, that stuff. But I don't know too much about the processes of the SBA, just because I didn't go through it, but I know it's very extensive. You need a lot of information that it's silly because it's false information. It's not really it. It's all forecasted. It's based off other people's numbers. And
most banks and the SBA aren't really willing to lend to a business without 2 years of books to look at. And so it's kind of silly because they're poised to be the startup funding, but really it's not going to be available to you. So like Justin was saying, finding private investors is going to be part of your game plan. For
private
me,
venture capitalists, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely asked my parents for loans. I'm trying to think. I think I asked my parents for a $30,000 loan at one point in the mid 2000s. I was fortunate enough that they were in position to share that with me. I did pay it all back with interest. And I still hold loans from family members. And then in order to buy the restaurant where I work today, I was a family friend sold it to me. So he was able to kind of hold the note and act as the bank because I didn't have enough money, nor would a bank loan me enough for a down payment on the restaurant. So it works out well for him. That way he doesn't receive a lump sum up front that is he's taxed on and has a steady income over time. So perhaps I would do the same thing in the future if I found someone wanting to buy my business that I trusted, because it would require a lot of trust.
Yeah.
But
Thank you very much for
Yeah.
your transparency.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
So if you were to do it all over again, would you still choose the same career path, or would you go about it in a different way, or would there be a major change to it?
This one's funny. It depends on the day of the week. It depends on what went wrong that day. But overall, I mean, I couldn't see myself. At one point, I considered changing career paths. I looked at the medical world. I thought about maybe military. I just did nothing really stuck. This industry and this world just makes a lot of sense to me. Art makes sense. He understands art, and people, if they're fortunate enough to find what just clicks with them, some it's music, some snowboarding, whatever it is. This industry just seemed to make sense to me from day one. I walked into the restaurant. I understood the flow and the chaos, and it all kind of calmed me down. So unfortunately, no, I probably would have to say sticking with it. I'm happy that I found this facet of the industry because there's so many. I mean, there's full service restaurants, quick service, there's wholesale, catering. There's so many. And then from there, there's different types of cuisine. Where I'm at now, like I said earlier, this is the best work-life balance that I've ever had. Even going into summer, I mean, I've been to the beach. I get to have fun still, or again. So no, yeah, this is where I would be.
Yeah, I would agree. I'm happy with my lifestyle. I love being an owner of a business, to having the leadership of being the boss, being responsible for a group of employees that I work with every day. I think I look to my future with optimism, and I hope that I can continue to try new careers, to be quite honest. I mean, I really enjoy the restaurant business because everyone can relate to, in my case, a cup of coffee or simple food. I see families come in and enjoy themselves, every day. So I think everyone can relate to that. It's a little bit different than the art world, which felt like a little bit of smoke and mirrors at times. So the food related business is a great business to be a part of. Everyone's going to need to eat. So there's always a market out there for you. And yeah, I would do it all over again. I think you just face the decisions in front of you every day and make the best choice, make the best decision you can at that time. And not let fear guide you, not live too much in the past, keep moving forward. So I hope that's a good answer for you.
Thank you. And I guess I do just a bit of an add-on question for you, Kent. What would be the next thing that you would want to pursue? Yeah.
Well, this panel got me thinking about my education a little bit, and while I wasn't an ace student, I wasn't a terrible one either. I did enjoy my time in school, but I always felt a little intimidated by the math and science elements of school, and found myself more in like social interests and creative interests. So if I could go back, I'd probably, I wish I had a better mentor in that field that might have redirected me a little bit, because along with my creative interests, I think I could have found a really stable job in something like architectural design or some sort of engineering that was involved with design elements or something like that. I really enjoy living in Tahoe for the outdoors, so I could see myself spending more time as a biologist, let's say, still having kind of a work-life balance here in the mountains, and studying my surroundings. So I would love to do something like that. Early this morning, I was dreaming of living on a sailboat, so we'll see if that ever happens. Yeah, so maybe I would like to be an architect. I know I don't really see myself doing that, but why not? I could see myself being some sort of like landscape architect or something like that, or at least a designer. What do you guys want to do? Bruno and Tassel?
Here, for this. So for me, I know that I want to be an entrepreneur. I would like to have my own business it's specifically in the realms of technology, or if I can't even achieve them, then at least in finances, you know, I know that already I'm just trying to, I'm already making plans for the summer to get my feet wet and starting my own sort of side hustle in order to, you know, get more on the business side of things. But also ever since last year when I was 19, I started to invest in stocks, and I wanted to get a jump on that as soon as I could, you know, because I guess I have that hunger to learn about those things. And I was kind of fascinated by stocks, although I'm not a master at it by any sort of means. You know, that's something that I really want to learn how to master. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
Well, that's great that you just
my-
jumped in. I think part of the questionnaire here is like, what advice would we give? And that's one of my big pieces of advice, is just to jump in with both feet and test the waters. You know, be willing to face some failure. You recognize the risk involved with buying and trading stocks, but you still are interested, and you've got to go try it. If you don't, you would regret it. So I think that's awesome that you have your feet wet now.
Thank you.
Well, I guess my end's a little bit different. I kind of had the same vision, like what Justin mentioned with like angel investments and stuff like that. You're kind of looking at how to grow the business, how to do all the, looking at the research, looking at how business will grow in that certain industry, a certain sector, especially small businesses, because they have a lot of competition with like these giant retailers or these giant companies, and also like nonprofits. Like they have such a huge potential, and that's what I looked at, and like kind of the investing part. But then I kind of shifted the side. I'm like, investing is not really what makes me passionate. It's more like marketing, sales, analytics, like looking at like what can benefit the business to help them grow, to help them develop more, to become more like community friendly or more open to where, you know, everyone is welcome, everyone has their own opinion and can share to like senior leadership or any kind of management, like, hey, this is what recommendations you can make to change certain things about how you operate, you know, things that I just want to like help grow businesses, and that's my passion. So that's what I use my consulting skills to do. And especially in Tahoe, being born and raised in a hospitality environment, I kind of know like, you know, what steps it took, because my parents are small business owners as well. So like I kind of got those skills growing up. So I know like, okay, now that I know that, I want to take that and use it for something else.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea of a small business consulting firm, you know, where you could be a company of one. You know, you don't have to rely on a lot of other people in order to share your advice and expertise, and it give you a lot of autonomy and flexibility, and be creative and build really rewarding relationships too.
So I have another question, and I think this is an interesting question this is an answer that I would like to hear to it, because I know that during the pandemic, you know, we have seen that any business, you know, has taken a hit, you know, whether if it's soft or it's a really hard hit. And I know, especially in Tahoe, the hospitality industry has been hit hard. So my question to you guys as business owners is, how do you deal with the crises and challenges that arise from you know, even like the pandemic, you know, where we saw stagnant employment, along with you know, just trying to really start normalizing things back to what it once was?
Well, we opened during the pandemic. I mean, the ball was rolling, and the concept for this was already being created. Actually, when the pandemic hit, I was back on the East Coast doing research for this. I was working in New York and New Jersey and getting in my foot in any bagel store deli that I could, but it's hard to answer that because we opened during it. But I don't know if anyone's been to our first store in El Tahoe. We have a carryout window, and that little window where you can place your order online, pick up at the window, has probably done $500,000 in sales just through that little window in a year and a half. That was an afterthought. That was a COVID response. Otherwise, you'd have to go inside and, you know, stand on your little blue circle 6 feet away from another blue circle. And so when I first wrote the business plan, I had two financial plans. One was, you know, we're doing okay, and one was we're doing great. we threw in a third one that was, we're doing terrible because no one can come inside. The world's falling apart. There's zombies on the streets. And that was literally just me and my brother. We figuring out, what time of day should we turn the lights off to save some money? Let's only bake at a certain time so that I don't have to have the oven going all the time and using gas. Things like that. It was a very, very financially strict pro forma. And that was sitting on the South Tahoe Restaurant Association meetings, hearing other restaurants who were less able to adapt to what they are, big restaurants, big concepts. They're just like, we have to shut down. And no one really wanted to think outside the box to do carry-out programs or do like a lunchbox program or family meal kits that they could pick up at the curb. While I know these restaurants, I know their kitchens, they were more than capable of doing it. It was just the inability to think outside their limitations. So I think that was creating this very, very strict budget and and then putting in a window. That was my COVID response. And just trying to be nice, trying to stay positive I think it's a big thing. I mean, we're in the hospitality industry. It's sometimes, I know a lot of other restaurants and chefs and people in this industry forget why we're there. But it was staying positive was a difficult one sometimes. I hope that answers the best. Since we're so new, I'm definitely seeing a difference this year. I have catering out the wazoo right now, and we don't even really advertise catering. So that was something that wasn't there last year because in-person weddings weren't really a thing, or they were very small. So this year they are being, different venues are being flooded with weddings and stuff. And we're getting response calls to do massive caterings and platters and stuff. I mean, this weekend I have one on Saturday, 2 Sunday, 1 on Monday, just through this weekend. So it's maybe that's would have been a difference had we had previous years of business. I'd see that would be a stopped income.
Yeah, I had kind of inherited a monster or a machine in operation through purchasing Ernie's, a business that had been in place for 50 years. And, it's a bit of an institution in our town, and people don't go there because they know what they like. And when we've tried to make change in the past, sometimes it's been we faced a lot of adversity around it. So when we started giving people new rules about how they need to enter the restaurant and what we can provide in terms of service, it wasn't always received that well. However, those challenges made us stronger. Ultimately, we learned how to adapt. For example, our menu, it was quite a large menu. It had grown over the years, and it was always a challenge to keep everything on hand. And we said, this menu is ridiculous. We need to look at the numbers and make some changes and cut the things that are just an expense to us. And so we did that. And while maybe not everyone loved it, business is ultimately common sense, right? Like it's your income less your expenses, and that's what you can walk away with. So you got to keep paying your bills. When the income's slowing down, you have to reduce your bills. So it was really as simple as that. And it's like Justin said, being adaptable to providing our services to the community. We ended up doing like an online menu, an online ordering, which people aren't really enthusiastic about eggs over easy to go because they get colder and then not as good when they're warm and at your table. You're at your table, but that pays for itself every day. It's like doesn't require anyone to pick up the phone, write down an order, put it into the kitchen. It's just all done, and the staff receives a tip for it. So it's kind of, it's great for everybody. So there are a few things that we learn. One is, hey, this is our business. We don't need to answer to the public all the time. If we need to make an adjustment that's good for the business and our employees, we're going to do that. And we feel that way moving forward. We catch ourselves right now feeling like things are stable again and we're going to go back to normal, and feeling maybe overwhelmed by it. And you look at each other and say, hey, if we're having trouble staffing the restaurant, well, we'll adapt and pull a chair out of the restaurant because we can't serve everyone as well as we'd like to without the proper staffing, for example. So I guess it gave us the courage to make changes in the moment, and as we move forward, make changes in the future. So I think ultimately it made us stronger as a business and business owners.
I think it's great that you care about your staff like that. You're willing to sacrifice a little, a couple bucks just for their sanity, for your own product. We do the same. We have an online ordering system, and if it gets too busy, we shut it down.
Yep.
We don't answer the phones. It's to maintain the integrity of the food. Things fall through the cracks naturally, and there will be certain mistakes, but at the end of the day, it's not about generating the most money at once and serving a less than par product. It's about serving a great product every time and consistently. That's where the success of our type of businesses will come from. People had a great meal once, people had a great meal the second time, the third time, not a great meal once and a terrible meal the next time, and then the wrong meal the third time.
Yeah, and employment, or having enough employees is now the issue that we face as small business owners. We've come out of this pandemic, but now, rents are going up. So my employees, I think of my 25 employees, and I think one of them owns a home. So everyone's renting.
Yeah.
And I'm paying 100% more in wages today than I paid when I bought the restaurant in 2015.
Wow.
So, you always got to take care of your employees, and I am thankful for the federal money that came in during COVID. We use it as it was intended, and it kept our staff in place, and it made all the difference. Because in a small town like ours, finding a great cook is not easy. It's not easy. So if you have one, you hold on and treat them right. And
yeah, I have chains on a few of mine. They can't leave.
Yeah, good.
They're shackled there.
Yeah.
But yeah, we weren't eligible. We didn't apply for the federal money, but even if we weren't eligible. We were just too new. We didn't have the numbers to show, and that's fine.
Yeah.
It was okay.
Well, thank you guys so much for spending an hour of your busy day to talk to us.
Yeah.
You gave so much good advice and insight. Is there anything else that you guys want to add before we let you go?
Question number 7, it says, what advice would you have for someone who'd like to pursue a similar career? When I started this career in 2001, it was very different than it is today. And it's not, it doesn't sound like any of you are going to be a chef or in hospitality, and that's good. It's changing. The cost of doing business is a lot higher. My profit margins are a lot smaller. Well, full service restaurants are a lot smaller profit margins when I first started. It's not like it's on TV, with Gordon Ramsay and all those shows where these young doughy-eyed chefs are very happy. It's not like that, and it's not like the movies. I would say you had it right in the gray shirt. I'm sorry, I forget your name. Look at trends. Do the research. Follow market research. I do a ton of research on trends, and not just trendy things or things that are trending, but Department of Labor trends. You can go on agricultural, like futures. See wheat prices. You can see different agricultural futures. Those are trends in the business world, and I follow those pretty strict. We deal with a lot of flour. I buy, between the 2 stores now, I buy a pallet of flour, 50-pound bags. 50-pound bags, I buy 40, so I buy 2 a week. And flour has gone up because of the war in Russia. So it was buying multiple pallets ahead of time, knowing that the futures were going to go up because I do research in market. And then talk to veterans in your field. Get to know people who own market research firms or financial institutions in different areas, whether it's real estate investing or technology investing. Those people are in town. I know that because I talk to my customers all the time. They come from many different walks of life. It's not just the snow bros. There's a lot of useful resources in this town, and it's a lot of untapped kind of communication gems here. So it's not on TV. Don't look at trends and talk to people. Get out there, talk to the veterans. And if they're good at their job, they'll understand that it's an adapting and changing world. All areas, technology, real estate, restaurants.
Yeah, good advice about not being afraid to ask questions. If anyone ever comes to me picking my brain, sharing that they want to open a similar business, yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you everything I know. It's my pleasure to share. So I'm not sure that my last statement is pointed at the audience in the room, but maybe someone else that may listen to this later, is that I think your college experience doesn't necessarily have to happen all at one time or in the classroom or, right when you're 18, 19, 20 years old. So part of what we've shared today is that we've ended up where we are by trying different things, trying different restaurants or fields of work and finding what we really like and then doing the research in order to make our dreams within that field come true, right? So for example, just get into the field, start trading stocks. And if that's what you really like to do, you will know more, you will know how to, you will know which schools might be a better fit for you moving forward. And that could be now, or it could be when you're 25 years old. It's hard to say, but I think the field is really a great teacher and continue to learn, continue
On
to
the
learn.
job, on the job training. Yeah.
On the job training. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a huge one.
No, thank you for having us. Good luck to you guys, to everyone in the room and watching. Excited for your future. Thanks,
Yeah.
Justin.
Thank you. It's good
Thank
talking
you.
to you.
All right.
Um,
Cheers.
Bye.
but